21 days till Election Day, November 3rd. Every Democrat has their work cut out to get the vote out. In fact, tomorrow, mail-in ballots go out here in Florida, and anyone who has requested a mail-in ballot can vote immediately. You can fill out your ballot in mail, or you can bring to the locked drop boxes during early voting beginning October 19th through November 1st. You can also bring your completed ballot to any of the 4 election offices. The Supervisor of Elections office located West Palm at 240 South Military Trail, where there is available a 24-hour secure lockbox, and returns to other offices must be done during business hours. And locations are available on the SOE website homepage. Scroll to the bottom of the page for locations. Now, before we get started with our main speaker, Ed Saul, who's the president of our club, would like to say a few words. Ed, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Paul. And first of all, let me say hello, Democrats, and to all the people of the Jewish faith. I'd like to wish them a healthy and happy New Year, Nashana Tova. And this time of year, unfortunately, I'd like to have a moment of silence to start the meeting, unfortunately, a tribute to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, an outstanding individual who was a great judge.
Well, very so us to call you, but then we saw you were calling.
Yeah. How are you doing?
We just called Papa. What you been doing, Tay-Tay?
Okay, everybody please mute yourself.
At this point, I'd like to pay a compliment to our team, the United South County Democrats, who is able to do a phenomenal job in spite of not having meetings, and having these wonderful Zoom meetings. I'd like to announce Debbie Cantor, our Vice President and Program Chair, in conjunction with Dr. Ken Summons, who's also our Program Chair. We have Sandy Kravitz, our Treasurer, and Ani Malak, our Secretary. Carol Esty, who's in charge of membership, in conjunction with Toby Solomon, Nate Spitz, Jill Hendler, and Paul Knapp, who's doing a phenomenal job conducting Zoom meetings. We also have a zone leader member, is Barbara Arab, and a parliamentarian is Bert Dowman. Excuse me. At this point, just remind everyone to please get out to vote, and I just want to use an old adage from a good friend of mine, bring back the old times, Murray Kalish. And he used to have a simple expression: if you don't vote, don't complain. That being said, we turn the meeting back to Paul. The meeting is all yours, Paul, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And again, wish everyone a healthy, happy New Year, and hopefully we'll have a new president before the end of the year. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ed. Now for the main event. Our keynote speaker tonight, former Congressman
Can't hear you.
You're on mute, Paul.
Okay, now for the main event, our keynote speaker tonight is Ron Klein. Ron is a former U.S. Congressman from the 22nd District. He's a founder and chair of the Jewish Democratic Council of America. And Ron's talk tonight is on anti-Semitism and its influence on American politics. Ron, it's all yours.
Thank you, Paul, and Ed, and the whole team here. Thank you all for being great leaders of this organization at a very important time. I also see my good friend, Senator Lori Berman. So, Lori, welcome, and hope you and your family are having a good holiday, and thank you for all the work that you're doing for Vice President Biden and all the work you do in the State Senate. So tonight what I want to do is just take a few minutes and talk to you a little bit about where the campaign is. I think you're getting a lot of feedback and a lot of information, and it's with Donald Trump for his entire 4 years. Every morning you wake up and there's another crisis or chaos or calamity, and you can only imagine what's going to happen between now and November 3rd. But as Paul just said, the election literally is starting in Florida tomorrow, the 24th. In Broward and Palm Beach counties, the ballots are going to be sent out. In Palm Beach County, they're sending out an entire block of hundreds of thousands at the same time. In Broward, it's about over 3 days. But the bottom line is, it's in our hands, literally, for those of you who are choosing to use absentee ballots. And I highly encourage you to consider it. If you haven't done so in the past, it's easy, it's self-explanatory, you have to follow the instructions, you drop it off in the box. The rule that everyone is saying is, hey, listen, when you get it, fill it out and send it back. It's postage prepaid. And another rule that they're sort of following is, if you're 10 days before the election, don't put it in the mail, drop it off. There's places to drop off, and you'll hear more about that as well. So that's the mechanics, and I would just tell you, I'm beginning with that because I truly believe at this stage, on a national level, that this election at this stage is all about GOTV. It's all about getting out the vote. Who shows up? I think the math is pretty simple. Donald Trump, for 4.5 years, before his election, through his inauguration, and literally through today, he's done everything he can to speak to his followers. He has built a cult-like following to the extent that they are intensely supportive of him, and they're going to show up and vote. So the math is there. Count their votes. I don't care what happens, bad rain, interference, whatever it is, they're voting. Okay? So the real question is are there more people in the United States, in the states that matter, and Florida happens to be one of them, that would rather see him taken out of office, or at least not get a second term? I think the answer is yes, and the question is, we have to make sure how we get them to make sure that they vote. Okay, there's a relatively small percentage of people that are, we call, undecided at this point. It's 3, 4, 5% at the most, which is pretty small, a month out or a month and a half out. But that means that there's some level of persuasion that's still going on for some people, if you know them, and you have to wonder why they would not be persuaded one or another, but there are some people that are holding out. So to the extent you know any of those people, take your time to explain to them what's at stake here, literally what's at stake. If it's the court and any number of issues that the Supreme Court or any of the courts, Court of Appeals or lower courts, that Donald Trump has appointed 200 judges during his 4 years, and now this will be the third Supreme Court judge if he's successful. This is going to have a generational impact on the interpretation of laws in the United States. It's a big deal. Votes matter. So for anybody who says to you, doesn't really matter, oh boy, does it. And if there aren't a dozen issues that you can put in front of them, find out what is the key issue that they really care about. And if it's the court, it could be abortion or women's right to choose. It could be in the environment. It could be guns. They interpret the Second Amendment regularly. It could be the health care bill, the Affordable Care Act, which they want to blow up. Any one of these things should have some resonance or some connection to the voters that you're speaking to. So we have a small group of persuadables. If you know them, talk to them, do it rationally. Don't spend your time fighting with people that are voting for Donald Trump. You're wasting your breath, okay, at this stage. They're pretty locked in. If you happen to know somebody who's not, then go for it. But other than that, the rest of the game is all about getting the people that would otherwise vote for Joe Biden to show up and vote. Okay, so that's the bottom line. So our organization, Jewish Democratic Council of America, happens to be focused on a portion of the population. Not everybody on the phone here is Jewish, but to share with you, it happens to be a big constituency, an important constituency in any of the swing states. So whether it's Pennsylvania, whether it's Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Florida, even Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, there's a sizable Jewish population. To the extent that an election is decided by 10,000 votes, 20,000, 40,000 votes, like we had in 2018, a huge state like ours, and Gillum and Nelson lost by 1/4 of a point. I mean, it's a sin. It's a sin that we lost by that kind of number. And it's in part because our numbers didn't show the way they should have. But I think people are motivated, but we do have to get a full complement of every single person, including what we call just lazy voters. These are people that they vote in this presidential election, they don't show up in the midterm, or maybe they missed an election. These are the people that we absolutely got to show up at the ballot box. Okay, and I can share with you a little bit because when we speak to the Jewish voters, in particular, there is a nefarious game that the Republicans play every 4 years, and I've been through this many, many times when I was in office. Even when I was running for Congress, the person who ran against me, Alan West, was supposedly some great supporter of Israel, and I wasn't. I mean, this was sort of the silliness that went along. But they put money behind it, There's a guy named Sheldon Adelson, whose name you may recognize from Las Vegas. He spends about $10 to $20 million a year going after Jewish Republican votes. And what they try to do, like with Obama, it was Barack Hussein Obama, or he was all tied to the radical left and all that kind of stuff. Well, this time with Trump, he's obviously done some things that are positive for Israel. I'm certainly not complaining about some of the things which I voted for when I was in Congress. But I think he's done some terrible things on Israel as well, including making Iran even closer to have a nuclear weapon than it was prior to his blowing up the Iran deal. We have none of our allies are working with us on dealing with Iran at this point. But beyond that, once you put Israel aside, because if you could say, all right, well, let's say that people say, oh, he's done good things for Israel. That's great. Joe Biden, for 37 years, has been incredible, probably the best candidate we've ever had, Democrat or Republican, on supporting the state of Israel and the right to a two-state solution and the right to defend itself and all those kinds of things. So let's maybe check the box on both those. The rest of the issues are pretty cut and dry for the community, the Jewish community and the Democratic community. The Jewish community aligns in many of the same places. And whether it's separation of church and state, how about anti-Semitism? I mean, do you feel safer now than you did 4 years ago when Donald Trump was elected? I don't, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about what's going on. I mean, the number of anti-Semitic complaints and acts and violence and Poway and Pittsburgh and all those kinds of things, this is all done under the watch of Donald Trump giving signals. Some people call them dog whistles or whatever to radical. It's not just against the Jewish community. It's against any minority community. And we as the Jewish community certainly understand what our history is all about, but we also care about every other Democrat and minority community in the country. And this is what Donald Trump, he emboldens these white supremacists with his comments and his statements and his actions. That's a very serious thing. But let's even move beyond that. What do we care about as Democrats? And if you're a Jew, with Jewish Democrats, what do we care about? We care about access to health care. He's been trying to blow up, the right to pre-existing conditions forever. Now he's going to sign a magic executive order, which will do nothing. This is serious business for all of us who really care about the fact that in the United States, health care should be a right, not a privilege, a right. And we all know, because of our own experiences, what that means. If you care about guns and you experience what went on with Parkland and all these other places, this president doesn't care. He says one thing, does nothing. Joe Biden will take it up as an issue. Whether you care about education, the right to a true education for every person, not to put as DeVos has done, try to take money out of public schools. That's the exact wrong way. Women's right to an equal pay, LGBT rights and interests. All these things, we can go down the line, environment, climate change. These are really monumental issues. We are at a precipice of a decision to take this country in one direction or another. And that's not to say that this president is in my opinion, is a disgusting human being. I'm just saying that outright. I never talk about people that way, but the way he has treated disrespectfully Americans, talks down to half of America. Our children are growing up in an environment where the person who we honor the office, if nothing else, the person who occupies this office is lying every single day. Coronavirus, his abject failure. 200,000 people have now died. Yes, it was always going to be a terrible thing, but we're 4% of the world, and we have 25% of the deaths that have occurred around it. He's still blowing it off and pretending it's not a real deal. My father passed away recently due to COVID. I'm sure many of you have also had very serious family, friends, and you know of other people as well. This is a very serious thing for our country. It's not going away, and we have to behave and have leaders that take it seriously. It means there's some basic sacrifices. Putting on a mask to sacrifice, Donald Trump thinks it is, and he's lit up half the country with his beliefs. So this is really a time when we have to do what we have to do to get out the vote. So when I started the conversation about getting out the vote, that's exactly what this is about. And persuasion is limited here. It's a matter of voting, making sure the absentees are done properly, signed properly. It's a matter of making sure if you want to vote early, you get there, you're not intimidated. There will be efforts to probably scare people away from voting in voting places, which is why I think voting absentee is a good thing. Or if you choose to vote on election day, just be patient. There'll probably be long lines. You have to bring some water with you, bring your mask, do everything you need to do. But this literally is a vote in Florida that could make all the difference. Trump is going to try to declare victory at 11 o'clock on November 3rd, even though the vote's not counted. He's going to say, oh, I'm up here, and I'm up there, and I'm up everywhere because so many people voted the day of the election. Florida, we actually count all the votes before they release it, which is fine. Not everywhere they do that. There are some states actually, if it's postmarked on the day of the election, by the day of the election, they can literally count it a week later. So it's likely, although we're somewhat used to elections being decided on the day of the election, it's going to be very important for our national media not to over speculate and overstate where this is, because it's going to take some time. We as Americans need to be patient. Our expectations should be that way, because it's very likely that Donald Trump may, in some states, have more votes on election day voting than absentee and early voting. So it's the question of when are all the votes counted is the bottom line. But I will say this about Florida, because we do count all of our votes, and they will release them all in the same day. It may not happen until the next morning because of the amount of time it's going to take. But if and when, based on our efforts, if and when Florida goes for Biden, mathematically, it's very, very difficult for Trump to put together an electoral college which will give him 270 votes because of all the math right now. And Pennsylvania looks like it's moving in the right direction toward us. Michigan is in the right place. Wisconsin right now is in the right place. I mean, still anything can happen, but these are good places. But Florida is pivotal. I mean, if Georgia, which is pretty close right now, if Arizona, pretty close right now, go toward Biden, it could be the clincher. But Florida, both sides know, and the reason we're going to get bombarded on all sides here, both sides know that it's a win or lose. We can still win on our side if we put together enough other states, but if we win Florida, it's pretty much over no matter what Donald Trump says. So we need to do everything we can. Every neighbor of yours, knock on doors, call them on the phone, make sure they're getting their absentee ballots. Every one of us has received in the mail the simple forms of how to do an absentee ballot. You pick up the phone, you go online, easy enough to do. And we're coming close to the end of registration, so there's still an opportunity there if someone's not registered. But every one of us needs to take 10 people on, our children, our families, our parents, our neighbors, and really, double, triple, quadruple, multiply times 10 your vote by getting all these other people to vote as well. So, Paul, I'm going to stop there. If there's any questions, I'm happy to respond.
I'm going to start with the first question.
Sure.
Today's Jewish Journal has an article that says Trump campaign calls Bloomberg an elitist globalist after he pledges $100 million to defeat Trump. The Trump campaign called Mike Bloomberg an elitist globalist. Accepting Mini Mike's money means Biden and Harris will be indebted to an elitist globalist billionaire who said Biden lacked management experience. They quote here a Democratic. Bloomberg is Jewish, of course, and the term globalist elitist is sometimes used to invoke bigoted tropes about Jewish control and lack of Jewish roots. I'd like to get your reaction to this.
Well, this is just one of many things. He's obviously Trump has gone after George Soros many times, who happens to be Jewish. He has gone on. He said something today that was a crazy comment about Jews are only in it for themselves, and making some comment. But it's one thing after another, and I don't want to be numb to any of these things. I think we just have to understand, this question is not about whether Trump is anti-Semitic. That's not the question. The issue is he's enabling, with his comments, including that one, Paul, into those people who buy into that somehow there's this Jewish elitist, control the world. It goes back to the Tsar of Russia and Protocols of Zion and the Elders of Zion, but it's been a regular theme about the Jews are in control of the media and banking and all this other stuff. So Bloomberg is a self-made man. Give him credit. He pays his people a decent wage. He's built up a big business, and if he chooses to spend his money the way he is, it's not that Trump doesn't have the Koch brothers and a lot of other people. They're their own global elitists doing their thing, but the system is set up the way it is. Bloomberg has the right to put his money where his interests are, and Florida's where his interests are right now.
If we have other questions, either raise your hand or in the chat, you can raise your hand on there. So, reaction. You have other questions on here? Okay, Phil, unmute yourself. Philip Cohn, go ahead. Go ahead. No, you're still muted. Wait a second. I'm gonna try to unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I just didn't know. I just want to be sure. I live in Stonebridge in Boca, and I'm part of the Stonebridge Democratic Committee here, and we have been trying to encourage people to vote by mail for a long time, several months. We have a pretty active committee, and I think that the efforts of Trump to dissuade people from voting by mail and the lies that he's been telling have been affecting a lot of our people here as well. So I don't know how to diffuse that.
You say it's affecting them. Are they believing that their vote won't count if they vote by mail?
We try to tell them, but there is a certain segment of people that just feel that voting by mail is dangerous. I get this from time to time, that voting by mail is dangerous. It's not legitimate, and the vote is not going to get there, and so forth and so on.
Okay. Well, listen, I think what you can do is a couple things. Number one, we have received, I've been talking to the campaign, I'm sure Lori Berman's been talking to the campaign and others. They're taking every precaution to make sure it gets done right. Okay, so I think if people request a ballot, fill it out properly, sign it properly, then they can take it. If they can take it to a drop-off. So there's some people are concerned that Trump has screwed around with the U.S. Postal Service and somehow it's going to get buried in a pile of U.S. Postal Service. Then you can overcome that by taking it to a location. Take it to an early voting location. There are drop-off places to do it. So that's a sure way of making sure that it gets done. And as a volunteer, by the way, Phil, the other thing you can do is you can go and pick up ballots for people in the neighborhood. In other words, if you say, "Hey, I'm going to go fill up my ballot, and I'm going to go drop mine off on Tuesday," fill yours out, and I'll drop it off as well. It can't be done with paid people.
Yes, we have a pretty large committee, and we have a chairperson, a woman, who is in charge of that, and we are trying to encourage people to do that, and we hope to be able to do that. So hopefully that will help.
That's great, Phil. And listen, if the reason to get people to vote at their home, at their kitchen table is it's easy, it's fast, and it is reliable. But listen, I recognize Trump has spent a lot of time trying to set this thing up as trying to stop people from absenteeing. I will say one little fun fact, and Lori knows this as well. The Republicans in Florida have been more effective than the Democrats in using absentee ballot over the years. So it's pretty funny. I don't know if you saw along the way, Trump reversed and said, "Oh, Florida is okay. They're doing it right." Yeah. He only did that because the Republican leadership said, "What are you doing? You're hurting our own people here by creating this panic here." So it's interesting. We were traditionally doing better at early voting, showing up on the early voting as opposed to absentee. I think both sides are pretty much pushing absentee, but we should do it. But thanks for doing what you're doing, Phil.
Ron, you talked about collecting ballots. Excuse me.
I have two things I would like to share.
Go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first, the one is a suggestion in those little communities where there's a lot of people and they don't trust anything. I'm wondering if they can get an Uber pickup to take them to drop off and bring them back where they would be comfortable. They wouldn't have to drive.
They can't. Here's the Republicans and actually, Lori, you on the phone still?
Yes, I am.
You want to talk about the law that was passed? The Republicans screw around with the picking up of ballots.
Yeah, I mean, so we really, the campaign is concerned, and the Democratic Party, we can't pick up ballots. But you, as a volunteer, you can pick up your ballots. I do want to say something. We're doing great on vote by mail in the state of Florida. I get the numbers every day. I mean, and we have 743,000 more requests from Democrats than there are from Republicans. And in Palm Beach County alone, we have 126,000 more requests. So what Trump did was he alienated his own people. I'm sorry to hear that some of our people are afraid, are a little worried about it too, but they're going to get their ballots. And you know what? COVID is still a real concern. And I got to tell you, I went to the polls in March and it scared me to the point where I now voted by mail in the last election myself. and I'm going to be voting by mail. And I think what Congressman Klein said, you need to have a plan, and your plan can be that you will get the vote by mail ballot. You won't send it back in by mail if you're not comfortable with that. You can drop it at, there are 4 sites immediately. Somebody needs to mute. There are 4 sites that you can drop it at, one in Delray Beach on Congress Avenue, and if not, every early voting site you can drop it at that time. So have a plan, have your plan in place, and that you know where you're going to do it, and help other people. You guys can help other people and pick up ballots if they can't get there. But make sure vote by mail is how we're going to win, because we've got a huge margin on it. So really encourage people, because also the numbers of people who request the vote by mail ballot and turn it in are extraordinarily high. And we want to continue that trend of having something like 80% of the people turn them in if they get a vote by mail ballot. So
yeah, and Roy, that's excellent. And Jocelyn, just to that point, what we're asking every community, just like Phillips community, like at Stonebridge, every community needs to have people who are going to be available and talking, because there's going to be a texting and chasing system in place, but there are people, as Lori said, that are not comfortable opening the door, let alone coming out and taking their ballot down the hallway to a mailbox. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that we're talking to them, and that each one of us plays a role in making sure our communities have a system in place to pick up that. Volunteers, we can do it all day long. You can pick up as many ballots as you want.
So my second point, with Obama, we had attorneys coming from all over the world to Palm Beach. Are we trying to get that this time?
Yes, the answer is yes. I was on a call, with the Broward County group that is running that, but yes, they're anticipating an absolute bad situation. That's a nice way of saying it, where ballots will be they'll try to challenge ballots and all sorts of stuff. So yes, there is a doomsday group that literally is anticipating every single possible legal challenge and operational challenge and harassment thing that they can do at the polling places to try to mess things up, and it's being planned for, and hopefully it'll be responded to.
Excellent, because it did work. I volunteered with them, and the one that was with me was like on point. I mean, it worked out beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, somebody's on the phone who has a question. If you unmute yourself, go ahead.
Yes, this is Drew Martin. How are you, Congressman? It's a pleasure to hear you.
You too.
I want you to talk about QAnon for a little bit, and some of the crazy ideas that President Trump has put out there that are really damaging, as well as his encouragement of violence and encouraging people to show up at these protests with their own guns. And maybe you could just talk about that for a second.
Sure. And Drew, thanks for everything you've done for all of us. We appreciate that. Yeah, QAnon, for those of you who haven't been following this thing, is an abbreviation symbol for a group that's a conspiracy theory group. You've already heard of a bunch of the conspiracies that have been pushed by some of Donald Trump's supporters in the past, Alex Jones and others. It started years ago with the whole killing in Connecticut at Sandy Hook was a hoax. It was staged. I mean, the things are so outrageous, and now this is everything about Joe Biden's pedophile. I mean, you can go on and on. It's just outrageous things. But these are people that are bought and sold into this whole thing. You have a woman running against Lois Frankel, who won the Republican primary, who supports this stuff. You've got some other candidates around the country, Republican candidates, who embrace this QAnon and others. QAnon is just one example of this stuff. And these are very dangerous people. And they're dangerous because of not just what they profess, but Drew's correct in that there's actually a subtle encouragement, sometimes overt, but many times just a subtle encouragement of violence. And the Trump people, they walk around with their guns out and their trucks and their big flags and the German Shepherds and the whole thing, and it's all about sort of engaging this kind of crowd, and they feed off each other. It's like a fuel that plays out, and they're intimidating to people. But they're so outrageous that, again, this race, it's hard to believe that we're even considering the fact that a race has to be even close for the president who accepts this and retweets it. But he does. And 40-some% of the country is either buying it or just looking the other way. So when you see it, you have to, dismiss it as conspiracy theorists. That's very dangerous. And the fact that the president's embracing it, and Lumi and others who run against Lois Frankel, that they're embracing it, we need to shut them down and let the public know these are theorists that are being pushed by, unfortunately, many Americans, and probably being picked up by some of these foreign adversaries that are playing in our politics as well.
Paul Jampolsky, unmute yourself. I think you're unmuted.
Hello. Hi, Congressman. I'm about to go into a debate with some Jewish Republicans tomorrow.
Okay.
And I need you to help me defend against this attack. And I'm going to send this email to somebody so you can read it.
Okay.
And the headline is 162 House Democrats vote against bill to fight anti-Semitism. I'll just read you a couple paragraphs.
I actually know about it.
You know the bill?
Yeah, sure. So in Congress,
help me. I need some
I
help.
will.
Okay. You know the bill, though.
Sure. What Congress does is Congress has bills that when it comes to the full floor, they vote on the bill, and the minority party, the Republicans, put these poison pill provisions in the bill to try to, and they put an amendment out, which they try to say you actually have to vote for this thing. And really what it does is it kills the bill. So the bill, it should
Speak up a little. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Any better?
Yes, better.
So I was just saying what they do is they put a poison pill amendment out there that sounds great, and what it's going to do is destroy the bill. Okay, so everyone votes against it. And then the bill itself, which is the good bill, which was passed by everybody except maybe 25 Republicans, passed right after that. So I will send you the information on that so you have it. It's a joke. I mean, the whole bill, it had to do with anti-Semitism and treating it the way it should.
That's the amendment on the bill.
Yeah. Yeah, and the bill itself is a good bill, and you'll see what it is. But I will also, Paul, point you to, for those who are debating Republicans, and they've got all their silliness they put out there, on the website of the organization that I chair, Jewish Democrats of America.
I remember that.
The website is jewishdems.org, www.jewishdems.org. And if you go to the section that talks about Joe Biden's, the facts on Joe Biden and Israel, it's all there. All points.
Okay, but I need you, maybe you can take my phone number and call me after the meeting, but I need somebody to coach me. Okay? Now, one other point. I live in a pretty affluent community, and I read an article in the Wall Street Journal about Biden's new tax proposals. And I don't mind the policy of taxing the upper income people in the country. I think that's a good policy, and I certainly don't mind paying for more. But there's another part of his proposed tax bill that bothers me a lot, and what that is it's part of it, and we have a very prominent a former trust and estate lawyer here, Lori Berman, who might be able to clarify this. The proposed Biden bill is that when both of us pass and our assets go to our daughter, she will be taxed on the unrealized capital gains. And we live off our dividends, and I wanted her to live off our dividends. And this will cut short about a third of our investment portfolio goes right down the drain. Now, I don't mind paying more in income taxes, but I certainly don't want my estate to be decimated. And something's got to be done to protect Democrats who are a little bit above the average income. Do you know about this proposal? And maybe Lori can help us out here as well.
Lori?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't checked the platform on that issue, and I will now that you said that. But remember, it is just a proposal. I'm not really in favor of it. Also, I have to take a better look at it and understand it. I agree with you. what Joe Biden said is he won't increase taxes on anybody who earns less than $400,000 a year, and I think that's perfectly fine. 400,000 is a pretty good high level, and people.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Right. So that part I'm fine. The estate planning part I have to look at, but remember also, anybody can put something in their platform, but then Congress has to pass it, and it has to go through a very rigorous process to get passed in Congress. So, I wouldn't be so worried about it right now, but I will look into it because I want to understand what his platform says about the estate tax also.
I can send you something on this, Lori. And the problem here is it's really going to decimate, if it goes through, it's really going to decimate generational
right, and
wealth transfer. And I checked with my trust and estate lawyer, and they said, no way that you can get out of it with a trust.
Thank you.
Wow.
We need to get on to some other questions. We have Terry Rizzo coming up. But Ron, we have a question here from Linda Blind. Bloomberg setting up funds for felons, and how will this work? I understand. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the voters of Florida, and we're one of the only states that still has this ridiculous law that once you pay your dues, if you will, and you pay your time after being convicted of a crime, that your civil rights are restored, and voting is one of them. And Florida is one of the last states in the country where you have to go before this constitutional right, you have to literally go before the cabinet to have it approved that you get your vote. I mean, it was impossible. So there are literally, million plus people that are in this category. So the voters of Florida decided through a constitutional amendment to change that. And the good people of the legislature, other than Lori and her colleagues, decided that they were going to make it very, very difficult because they felt like somehow all felons are Democrats are going to vote. I mean, I don't even know what that's about, but it has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. It's just either right or wrong, period. I mean, if you think it's right, then people, once they paid their dues, that's it. So they created a mechanism where you had to pay court costs and some other stuff and make it virtually impossible. And they took it through the court system, and a conservative court decided for the Florida legislature that they could limit this. So Bloomberg said there's a cost, and a lot of these voters can't vote because they don't have the money. And that's never been an issue. Any voter in our state or the country has to pay a poll tax. There's no cost to voting. It's just an inalienable right to vote. So Bloomberg came up with the idea of he's going to raise some money, and that he can put his money where his mouth is and get other people to create a fund, and people can apply to the fund to use money to help pay whatever is left in court costs so they can vote.
My understanding is that it will only apply to about 31,000 felons who have registered to vote and have payments due of $1,500 or less.
It's probably about right. That's probably right.
And there are over 7,000 felons, convicted felons who served term who might have been eligible to vote. Lori, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, today something really horrible happened. Also, our Attorney General in the state of Florida, Ashley Moody, is bringing a lawsuit on behalf of our governor and also our financial officer, saying that Michael Bloomberg is paying people to vote, and that is illegal. And they are trying to stop him from using the money to help felons be able to vote. So this lawsuit was filed today by your state with using your taxpayer dollars. It's just horrendous.
Well, thank you.
And they've stacked the court with a lot of judges that will side with them. So it's a problem.
Ron,
Gotta beat them, folks. We gotta just beat them with numbers. That's how we're gonna do this thing. If we can get control over our legislative branch and the executive branch at the national level, that will make a big difference in terms of having a lot more authority to fix some of these problems.
Ron, I want to thank you very much for your participation, your presentation. At this time, I'm going to bring Terry Rizzo on. Terry is the chairwoman, as you probably everybody knows, of the Florida Democratic Party, and also chairwoman of the Palm Beach County Democratic Party. Terry?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Ron. Congressman Klein, it's terrific to hear from you and to listen to what you have to say. And you're absolutely right. The thing we have to do right now is win. That we have to win. We have to win convincingly, and that's the whole idea of getting out the vote. And I just wanted to give a couple couple updates on what's happening with regard to that. I think, excuse me if I'm covering something that may have already been said before I came on. We have vote by mail ballots will drop this starting tomorrow throughout the state. We in Palm Beach County, they will drop tomorrow. So people should begin to receive them within several days if you've signed up to vote by mail. It will be slightly different throughout the state, but the last day that they will go out is October 1st, from what I understand, in some of the counties. So people, you can track your ballots. If you haven't received it within a week, I would certainly track your ballots on the Supervisor of Elections website to see where it is, and in terms of the process, if it has been mailed appropriately, and you should get it. We are advising, and I will tell you the great news on this, which is absolutely terrific. We now have a margin, the Democrats have a margin of vote by mail signups on the Republicans of 743,718 vote by mail requests. That is an absolute unbelievable number, as Congressman Klein can attest, because that is that represents not just our super voters, that represents many, that represents 1/3 of Hispanic voters in the state. That represents approximately almost half of African American voters in the state. It represents super voters, and it represents 120,000 Democrats who are what we call cold voters, who could have voted in 2016 and 18 but did not. So they are now signed up to vote by mail. So we're not just cannibalizing people who already are regular super voters. There are a lot of people on this who are not super voters, and this is a way to mobilize voters. So we want everybody to vote safely. If you choose to vote by mail, return it early. Return it immediately. Put it in the mail. Postage is paid in Palm Beach County, and avoid what is called, the vote by mail spike. We want to have flatten the vote by mail curve. We don't want them all coming in at the end. We want to get them all in early and get them in the bank. And of course, the advantage to that for everybody is once your vote by mail is in, then you stop getting contacted by those of us that are going to be on the phone banks harassing people. So therefore, get those ballots in and get them counted. If you choose to hand deliver them, you can deliver them immediately to any supervisor's of elections office from the day you receive it through the day of the election. People who choose to wait until early voting, all early voting sites will have locked drop boxes. There will be 18 of them in Palm Beach County. That's on the Supervisor of Elections website. So during early voting hours, you can drop off vote by mail ballots at any of these locked drop boxes, and that will happen statewide, by the way. It's not just here in Palm Beach County. All early voting sites will have locked drop boxes. And you can, the only place you cannot return a voted vote by mail ballot is at your polls on election day. But what you can do is vote live. So consequently, make your plan to vote. However it is you're going to do it either by mailing early, dropping your ballot off at locked drop boxes or at the Supervisor of Elections office, or early voting. If you choose to do that, you can show up and vote in early voting or at the polls. But make a plan and do it. We want to get a huge number of votes in early in the bank because, as everybody knows, in Florida, vote by mails must be in by 7 o'clock on election night. So but they begin to be tabulated 20 days in advance. So all supervisors of elections around the state are going to start tabulating them, running them through the machines. And so consequently, all but the ballots that arrive on the last day, that arrive on election day, all of those ballots will be in. The supervisors of elections will flip the switch, and those votes will go up on the screen. And we would like to have a huge number, coming in from around the state, having a huge number at the close of polls on election night. Remember, that's going to be 8 o'clock our time because of the Panhandle. Panhandle's in the Central Time Zone, so polls won't close until 7 o'clock there, which is 8 o'clock here. So at 8 o'clock, about 8:01, right, Congressman Klein, about 8:01 or 8:02, up goes that big number on the screen. At the second number of totals that will come in will be the early voting totals. And so once those go up, we want to have a massive number so that Donald Trump knows he's playing from behind, the whole way through. And we want to vote in overwhelmingly. So there are numbers of things that are going on. Voter education is key. Make sure everybody that knows what they need to do. And we're doing this statewide, of course, through PSAs, through various digital ads, through actually advertisements in the Hispanic community and African American community and a number of things that we're doing statewide to make sure that people know how to vote, to make a plan, and vote early. So if anybody has any questions on that, it's something that we want to make sure that everybody does and knows what to do.
Terry, I just want to ask, there's a question about ballot harvesting that the president keeps.
Yeah.
So can people in a community collect ballots and then bring it to the mail or bring them to a drop box?
There is concern about that one of the ploys that the Republicans are doing will say is to do ballot harvesting. So we're recommending that people not show up with 40 ballots at the supervisor of elections office, but there's nothing that prevents anybody from because any volunteer, anybody who is not a paid campaign person for either a campaign, a party, or a political organization, those people who are in those categories, paid people, can only collect 2 in addition to their own family members. So they're only allowed to have 2 ballots that they can turn in. Everybody else who is a non-paid person can take ballots in for all kinds of people. But we would strongly suggest that you do this not showing up with 80 or 100 ballots at a time. Because that then lends credence to the fact that if the Republicans choose to say that we're ballot harvesting. But what I would say is take ballots in. If you're collecting for your community, go ahead and do it. Yeah.
You have other questions out there?
Yes, Jocelyn. Hey, Jocelyn. Great to see you.
Thank you. So when I was volunteering, there was a dynamite attorney who volunteered to be in there.
Yes.
Somebody actually went to vote in the little computer for Obama, and McCain's name popped up. That attorney said, "That's it, we're shutting you all down."
Yeah.
We were able to fix it in like 5 minutes.
Exactly.
I'll remind everybody that they have to keep an eye, really, on that also.
And I actually just got off a previous call when I was coming on to here from our voter protection, our lead voter protection attorney in the state, Brandon Peters, who is working with now with the Obama campaign. The coordinated campaign the FDP program has folded into the coordinated campaign. So we are told that this is the most massive voter protection team ever assembled for a state in any state ever. So there are currently 37 paid attorneys on staff through the working with the Obama campaign, with the Biden campaign. In addition to that, there are volunteer teams in 50 of the counties now working very strongly with this group and being coordinated, and they are anticipating every single possible problem that could occur. And they're about to send out instructions on that to all of the various teams. So in answer to your question, Jocelyn, yes, there will be people in the poll watchers. There will be a lot of them. And they're actually looking for people who also would like to volunteer your services if you choose to do so to assist with this effort as poll watchers too. So if any of you do, let us know. Email me and I'll forward you up to our folks here. And my email is my personal email is terryrizzo@yahoo. So send them to me and we'll forward them up.
Terry, you're still looking for volunteers for poll watchers?
Yes. Yeah.
Staff voter protection hotlines?
Yes.
Calls from home?
Yep.
Yeah.
And volunteers on any number of levels. I mean, they're volunteering to help with the campaign. This Saturday, for example, there is a whole texting program in operation through the FDP, and we're looking for volunteers to basically text to everybody, and I'm clicking my thumb here for texting, show this, to everybody who received a vote by mail, to let throughout the state, to make sure that people know that ballots are coming. Actually, it's for people in the counties where the ballots have dropped. So not in some of the counties they won't have dropped yet. So it's only to the counties where the ballots have dropped. So this is a day of action this Saturday that will be statewide. So if anybody likes to text, there is a way to sign up to do that too. And we actually sent an email out, I think, earlier this week on that.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions here? Terry, I have one other.
Debbie Cantor has her hand up. And Debbie, are you still in Maryland? Are you still up in Maryland?
But I'm coming home this weekend.
Okay. But I was going to say that we have people helping us from all over the country on this. there are a lot of people up in Massachusetts in particular. The swing left group is helping substantially our efforts here in Florida. We have a whole big crowd in California and multiple other states. Many of the blue states that are volunteering to help Florida, and that includes a number of attorneys who are going to be coming in, if they're not already here, from out of state to help with our voter protection efforts. So, back to your question now. Sorry.
Go ahead, Debbie.
I was just wondering if voter protection people were working on this business with the former felons who are not supposed to be getting any help from Bloomberg, according to the Republicans.
Well, I mean that's all up in the air right now. But the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition is the group. This is Desmond Mee's group, and they're the ones through which this is all funneling. Now they have a pool of several. I gather from what I've heard, something in the vicinity of $10 million even before the Bloomberg consortium started adding money into that. They'd already collected money that would assist in the payment of those fines. The problem is, from what we understand, it's not just that. It's actually finding how much each of these folks owe. And Paul, I think it was you or somebody identified the fact that it's limited to people who have already submitted or have their applications, but have not been able to pay the fines and determine that. The issue is determining exactly what those fines are. So there are teams, from what I understand, and they're focusing primarily on several of the larger counties that have friendly attorneys general. So Palm Beach County, Broward, Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, and Orange, where they're large counties and large numbers of potential people affected, and B, where we have friendly attorneys. And so in order to be able to try to expedite this and get the fines ascertained and then be able to get them paid off. So they only have 3 weeks to do it because the voter registration deadline is the 5th. But these people, A, already have their registration applications in, and B, are in potentially friendly territory, so that we can help find it. So that's the group that they're beginning to work with, as I understand.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Well, mostly, I just wanted to make sure that somebody was actually. I know that the Trump and his campaign thinks that it's buying votes. They think that this is buying votes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know if this, what you were talking about.
It remains to be seen. Well, we'll find out from our folks tomorrow exactly what the status is.
Well, LeBron James is also trying to do this.
Yeah, that was part of the original pool that they had. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, John Legend, the performer, had already contributed to this effort, and now others have signed on as a result of Bloomberg. Bloomberg reached out to a whole bunch of people in the entertainment and sports industry in particular to help, bolster this funding. And my understanding was it was well up over $20 million now, but in terms of what they potentially had available, but
don't you try to cut Bloomberg then? You're not going to bother with the entertainment industry.
We don't know, and that's why I say we're going to find out tomorrow. Maybe an effort to stop everybody, start with the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, or specifically, I don't know. Is Lori Berman still on? I don't know if she knows anything about this, but as I said, this just happened today, so I don't know that they know at this point yet.
Thank you. I don't see Lori anywhere. Can you clarify, Terry, as far as when the ballots, if there is a mail-in ballot, they can be dropped off to any of the drop boxes?
Correct.
And you can't bring it in to the election on November 3rd. The early elections, early voting, can you bring is there going to be drop boxes?
Yeah, when I say drop boxes, and let me clarify that, you can take your ballot into any supervisor's of elections office, and there are 4 here in Palm Beach County, starting from the day you receive it all the way up through election day. So you can actually live return them to a supervisor's of elections office from now to election day. You can take them to early voting, and that's where those locked drop boxes will be, is at early voting. So, and early voting is 7 in the morning to 7 at night. All right, so 7 in the morning to 7 at night on every day of early voting. So anybody can return the vote by mail voted ballots and put them in the locked drop boxes during early voting period. That will end on the Sunday before the election day. Okay, period where people can take these in and put them into the locked drop boxes. Then you still can continue on that Monday to take them into the supervisor of elections office, and then on that Tuesday. The only place you cannot return them is at your own poll on election day. So when you go to your own, if you thought you might want to be able to turn it in at your precinct on election day, that you cannot do. You would have to drive it up to the supervisor's of elections office. And also, just for clarification, the main supervisor of elections office in West Palm Beach, which is 214 Gunpowder Road in West Palm Beach, that has a 24-hour lockbox. It's under camera surveillance and it's under observation 24 hours. That is the only place in the county that will have 24-hour available return. So it's the main supervisor of elections office in West Palm Beach.
Can you repeat that address, because
Yeah, it's
saying it's on
yeah.
South Military.
Yeah, it was, pardon me, the Gunpowder, it is South Military, and that's the same thing. It's basically at the corner
Right.
here. So it's 214 South Military. And so but that one is under 24-hour camera surveillance, and it is lighted, and so it is a safe place to drop off a vote by mail ballot. It's the only place in the county that's 24 hours. I think from the day you start, you receive it, you can take it up and put it up there.
And early balloting starts October 19th, is it?
Early voting, the early voting, correct.
voting.
Early voting starts the 19th, correct.
Correct address is 240 South Military.
Oh, what did I say? I'm sorry.
214.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, 240, not 214. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
And you can always find all of this information, incidentally, on the Supervisor of Elections website. And the Supervisor of Elections website, just for everybody's information, and you should keep this, is PBC Elections with an S, pbcelections.org. So pbcelections.org has all of that information, everything about early voting, everything about vote by mail, all the locations of the early voting sites, and the locations of the 4 supervisors of elections office. So all of that information is on that website.
Very good.
Okay.
Michael, did you have a question? No. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for
Thank you
everything
very
you
much. Thank everybody for participating today. Everybody get out and vote.
Yep.
Vote by mail if you have the chance, you're induced to do so. Otherwise, early voting, but it's important to get, and if you're going to vote by mail, get it in the mail early. Don't wait. Don't wait. So,
Want to thank Terry?
Oh, could I say one thing? Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt and say one thing. It doesn't happen often, but occasionally people will put 2 ballots into one envelope. I mean, sometimes they think they're saving postage, or sometimes they just think it's easier. And though if a married couple or say family members will put 2 ballots into one return envelope for vote by mail, that will invalidate all the ballots. Okay, so you absolutely do not put multiple ballots in one envelope. And be sure if you have several people voting by mail in your household, make sure that the right ballot goes in the right envelope. So the correct, the wife goes in the wife, the husband goes in the husband, the kid goes in the kid. Whatever it is, make sure that they're in the right envelopes.
it's important also to sign and date.
Yep. Most important thing.
Terry?
Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
All right. There's been some contradictory statements. Can we collect ballots and bring them into the SOE?
The answer is yes, you can, but we recommend that you don't go in with massive numbers of them.
Okay. Can we...
And that's coming from the campaign, all right? So that's the preference of the campaign.
Second question.
Yes.
Can we collect ballots and bring them to the Democratic office?
No, the answer is no. We are not collecting at the office. The office is closed. I mean, it's only open for limited business, so it is not. It's not available at the Democratic Party office.
So if you collected ballots, then you would be responsible to bring them to the SOE.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other final questions? Not Terry, I want to thank you very much.
Oh, thank you all for what you're doing. I mean, it's a big team effort. I mean, it's a massive team effort. And here in Palm Beach County, our numbers, I should tell you, we now have approximately just about 50% of all Democratic voters in Palm Beach County have signed up to vote by mail, which is absolutely amazing. And so And as you know, the county party, what we do is print a slate card of all the Democrats on the ballot and our position on the amendment, and that is going out in the mail also to arrive simultaneous to the ballots. It is because we have so many. This is going to go out to about 300,000 people in Palm Beach County. So it is a massive number of ballots that this is going to go out to because of all the people who signed up. So if anybody wants a slate card, you should be getting one in the mail if you signed up to vote by mail. You also can see all of that information on the website, and that's our website, not the supervisor elections. That's pbcdemocraticparty.org. Has all of the Democrats on the ballot and the positions on the amendments. So basically, we recommend yes on 2, which is the raising the minimum wage. No on 1, which is the double requirement that the amendments being proposed have to be proposed twice in consecutive elections, which is ridiculous. It's the way the legislature is trying to limit them getting on. No on 3, absolutely no on 3. This is the one that's called the all voters vote one, which purports to allow no party affiliates to vote, to vote in a primary, and it's basically the jungle primary, so that the top 2 go on to the general election. That is horrible in everybody's minds, because if that were to have happened in the 2018 election, if you remember in the primary, the top 2 vote getters were both in the primary were both Republicans. So we would have had a choice of 2 Republicans, in the general election, and Gillum wouldn't have been on the ballot. So we definitely are against that. And then no on 4 and yes on 5 and 6. So those are the recommendations. But if anybody wants those, they're up on the website. And again, excuse me for going on and on about this.
No, that's fine. Terry, repeat that website.
It's our Palm Beach County Democratic Party website, which is PBC Democratic Party, and so it's PBC and then Democratic Party all written out .org.
Okay. Again,
Terry,
thank you for all you're doing.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I talked about a League of Women Voters seminar this afternoon.
Yeah.
And the League is recommending no votes on amendments 5 and 6.
Oh, really?
Because they don't think that tax matters should be in the Constitution.
Okay, well, that's a good point. Yeah, okay. The property appraisers across the state, however, are recommending that be yes. So including our own Dorothy Jacks, our own appraiser is recommending a yes on it. So because they were in favor of it, we thought it might be a beneficial thing. So either way, look at it yourself, and that's a very good point, Michael. So thank you. Yeah.
Bill, did you have a question? You had your hand up? No. Okay.
Okay.
Terry, thank you for all
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks for your participation. We'll let you know when the next meeting's taking place.
Okay.
Have a
Bye-bye,
good
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Mr.
Good night,
Napoli,
all.